John Blackfeather's hands shook as he gripped the faded envelope, not from the cold winds whipping through the Rocky Mountains of Colorado, but from a pain that ran deeper than the scars on his broad frame. At 6'7", John had stared down grizzlies and blizzards without flinching, but this letter from Sam Whitaker, a man who'd pulled him from the edge of ruin, hit like a landslide. Sam, the only outsider who'd ever treated him like family, despite John's mixed Cherokee blood and rugged looks. The seal was broken, but the words inside burned fresh. "She's coming, John. My niece is from Chicago. She'll have the map. Keep her safe." I showed her how to navigate city streets, but not the wild hearts of men. Through the frost-laced window of his cabin in Rusty Ridge, John watched the Greyhound bus rumble into town. A woman stepped off, bundled in a wool coat too fancy for these parts, her hands clutching a worn briefcase like it held her last hope. Her eyes scanned the sleepy street diners, pickup trucks, and folks who'd seen better days. What happens when a vow to a ghost crashes into a stranger's desperate ambition? John wondered, his gut twisting. Little did he know, this city girl was about to upend his world. Her name was Emily Whitaker, and she strode into the Rusty Ridge diner like a fresh breeze in a stale room. Heads turned loggers, ranchers, men hardened by mine collapses and harsh winters. She moved with that polished poise, trying to mask the nerves, her auburn hair glowing under the fluorescent lights. John didn't glance up from his coffee, but he felt her approach, her scent of vanilla cutting through the grease and smoke. "I'm looking for John Blackfeather," she said, her voice steady but edged with urgency. The room went quiet. Cherokee roots weren't always welcome in these hills, but Sam Whitaker had bailed John out of more than one scrape, and loyalty lingered like old debt. "That's him," a grizzled regular muttered, nodding toward the giant at the counter. John set down his mug and turned. She was petite, but her gaze held fire, Chicago fire, forged in boardrooms and late-night studies. When their eyes locked, the air thickened. "You're the niece," he rumbled, rougher than he meant. She nodded, stepping closer. Close enough for him to catch her determination, sharp as a knife. "Uncle Sam said you'd help. He saved your life once, right? Said you'd repay the favor." John wiped his hands on his flannel shirt, suddenly self-conscious of his calluses and trail dust. 10 years ago, yeah. Pulled me from a bar fight gone bad. Taught me to read contracts, see beyond the stereotypes. Guess I owe his kin the same. Emily opened her briefcase, fingers trembling slightly as she pulled out the map Hen sketched, dotted with symbols that made John's breath hitch. Cherokee runes blended with old settler notations and Sam's precise coordinates. "He left this for me, to find the lost silver. I needed to fund a clinic for kids in underserved neighborhoods back home." John eyed the map, his jaw clenching. This wasn't silver. It led to something far riskier, the ancient burial sites of his grandmother's people, hidden since the forced relocations of the 1800s. Sacred ground, artifacts that could rewrite history or destroy what little remained of his heritage. But Sam had trusted her with secrets that could shatter lives. And Sam had trusted him to protect her. "This trail," he said, meeting her intense stare, "it's not what you expect." "What do you mean?" She traced a symbol, her touch light but electric, sending a jolt up his arm. "They mean danger," he replied, biting back the truth. "And it won't be simple." Emily straightened, her chin lifting with that stubborn spark that reminded him of Sam. "This seems overwhelming for me," she admitted, studying the lines. Then she smiled, a grin that could thaw the Rockies. "But I'll give it a shot." That smile stuck with him like a thorn. That night, John tossed on his cot, staring at the rafters. A promise to the dead was ironclad, but out here, oaths twisted like mountain paths, especially with a woman whose spirit echoed the streams he'd fished as a boy. Across town, Emily's light burned late in the motel, poring over survival guides. Come dawn, he'd have to reveal the map's real secret. Not riches for her clinic, but relics to preserve his people's souls. Between honor and heartache, between ghosts and the living, John Blackfeather would face his toughest choice. Morning broke crisp and unforgiving, the kind that tested souls in the Rockies. John found Emily behind the motel, fumbling with hiking gear on a rented ATV that bucked like a mule. She'd swapped her coat for jeans and boots, still too pristine, the fit accentuating her resolve in ways that dried his throat. He'd seen women come and go, but none with her blend of grit and grace. "The machine senses your doubt," he said, approaching steadily. "Ease up on the throttle." She spun, her hair whipping across her face, a sweat bead trailing down her neck and her collar. "I can't stop overthinking. It's my thing." Then think about balance, not control. For the next hour, teaching Emily to handle the terrain felt like taming a storm, frustrating yet captivating. She tackled each bump with a focus she'd use in cracking a medical case. When she finally mastered a rocky incline without tipping, her laugh rang out, unlocking something buried in his chest. "You're gripping like it's a steering wheel," he noted. "Ever driven a stick shift?" She chuckled. "In Chicago traffic? Barely. But I get it now." By noon, they rode tandem toward Eagle Peak, Emily starting to trust the machine in him. "Tell me about Uncle Sam," she said over the engine's hum, as they skirted a sheer drop. John paused, the wind carrying memories. "Found me bleeding out after a land dispute turned ugly. Could have walked away. Instead, he taught me law, showed me a man's value ain't in his bloodline." "What did you teach him?" "How to endure. How to see these mountains as allies, not enemies." The first real ordeal hit at Thunder Gorge, where sudden rain turned a stream into a raging river. John gauged the flow, risks mounting. Beside him, Emily analyzed it like a puzzle, her book's smarts clashing with his instincts. "Too swift to cross here," she said, "but feasible downstream." John dismounted, wading in. "Follow my lead." What followed seared into his mind. Emily slid off, grabbing his hand small, warm against his roughness. Midway, the current yanked her, his arms snaked around her waist, pulling her flush against him as they battled the torrent. For a split second, her face upturned, water cascading like molten gold. Time froze. Then they emerged, laughing in the mud, and John knew the shift was irreversible. "I look ridiculous," she gasped, soaked. "Ridiculous, don't laugh like that," he countered, her gaze making his pulse race. That evening, by a crackling fire under stars sharp as diamonds, Emily pressed. "John, what's the map hiding?" He stirred the embers, sparks dancing. In the glow, her features were ethereal, stirring an ache he hadn't felt in years. "It ain't silver. It's sacred Cherokee burial grounds. Artifacts priceless to collectors, sacred to us." She processed, eyes widening. "You think I'd desecrate your ancestors?" "I think Sam knew you'd choose right, even if it breaks you." The question lingered. What was right? They hit Major Harlan Crow's outpost at daybreak on day 3, smoke curling lazily. John scoped 3 armed men through binoculars, all watching their back trail. Crow, his old army superior, was a relic of brutal tactics against native lands. "Who's that?" Emily whispered, her warmth pressing close. "Old Ghost. Hoped he'd stay buried." Harlan Crow's voice boomed as they neared. "Miss Whitaker, you're with a traitor." Emily sat taller. "The only threat I see is you, Major." Crow smirked coldly. "Your guide cost me my rank, refused orders to raid his kin's camps." John's hand twitched toward his rifle, but Emily's touch steadied him. "What do you want?" "The Cherokee, silver your uncle mapped." I'll take it by any means. Tension coiled like a spring. Emily's bluff cut through. Assume we haven't claimed it already? Smooth as silk, it stalled him. She flashed a carved stone from her Paxam's keepsake, unrelated to treasure. This unlocks the vault. Brilliant misdirection bought escape time amid a blinding squall, racing through hail toward the true sacred springs. But Crow would pursue. Men like him always did. The springs hid in a tight ravine, walls etched with ancient tales. Stunning, Emily breathed, seeing it anew through her eyes not loot, but legacy. The cave lurked behind a waterfall veil, a tapestry of stars and cycles that awed her. A celestial map she traced reverently. And a mechanism. John nodded. Grandma's legends, hidden when troops came, needs dual wisdom skies and spirit. Together, they unlocked it. Her math-aligned constellations, his lore-infused meaning. The chamber yawned, revealing not ore, but masterpiece bedwork, tools, relics echoing centuries. Emily, he said softly, these stay with my people. That's when Crow burst in, hands off. Rifle aimed at John, henchmen blocking exits. Fortunate enough to clear my name. Emily stepped between them, instinctive shield. John's heart hammered. These aren't yours or mine. Then whose? She glanced back, eyes alight with epiphany. Those who remember their roots. Chaos erupted. Emily, spotting unstable rocks, triggered a precise collapse-strapping Crow's men, sparing the core. In a melee, they fled with select pieces, sealing the rest. The deserter, mountains demanded harsh truths. 3 nights later, by firelight, watching Crow's remnants fade south, John murmured, I can get you back to Rusty Ridge. Forget this, return to Chicago. Emily polished a relic bracelet, starlight glinting. Is that your wish? What I wish doesn't count. You got a life, family, patience. Why'd Uncle Sam really send a map? She met his gaze. To transform us. I know myself now. I choose meaning over money. Home ain't a city, it's someone who sees you true and picks you still. Words bridge the gap. John saw her fully, the fire in her hair, strength in her hands from trials, compassion that braved bullets for him. You don't get it, he growled. I'm no bridge Cherokee who learned law, but couldn't bend to orders. No fit in any world. We'll carve our own. Dangerous simplicity reshaped him. 6 months on, the community center stood at Rusty Ridge's edgy a beacon. Emily used a hidden silver vein, separate from relics, for supplies. John built it sturdy, blending cultures. Miss Emily, little Rosa Martinez asked in class, how'd you get so tough? Emily glanced out to John, teaching kids native, Latino, white tracking skills. Met a man who proved fear and bravery coexist. After hand-in-hand passed his workshop, she asked, regrets? The artifacts rested with elders, traditions thriving. Their center taught unity. None. Sam said best treasures are shared. That sunset on their porch, a kid young Tommy Rivers, Aid approached with an oversized fishing rod. Mr. John, this pole's too huge. Can't cast it. John smiled rarely and warmly. Grow into it, but try anyhow. Years later, Rusty Ridge tales varied. Some said they unearthed pioneer gold, others native silver. But the kids raised their learning languages, history. Empathy knew the truth. Treasure in John's softened eyes at Emily's laugh, her stride beside him, building bridges none could alone. The mountains forged them, stripping illusions. Most broke or soured, but for the bold trusting love over security, valuing heritage they bloomed into destiny. John thought his tale ended with his people's displacement. Emily believed hers started on that bus. Wrong. It ignited when they chose each other, enduring beyond silver's gleam, center's growth as their students became leaders. Because true treasures endure, vows hold, and some romances span lifetimes. But you try anyway. What do you think about the choices John and Emily made? Should sacred artifacts always stay with their original people, or could sharing them in museums benefit everyone? Share your stance in the comments below. I'd love to hear your views and spark a discussion.